I want to make a video series here about how I planned our wedding. Our wedding was an alternative wedding, and for us that meant a festival themed, like a Ren Faire themed Celtic hand fasting on the summer solstice, which is a traditional day for hand fasting. And so I want to share about the kind of unique way that we did things, because I think it might help other people trying to plan alternative weddings and hand fastings. And one of the most favorite parts of my wedding for me, and I think for a lot of people, were the flower crowns. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about the why and the how for our wedding flower crowns. So one of the most important things for us in our wedding is that we wanted it to be participatory. We wanted everybody here with us, our family, friends, all of the guests with us, to participate and be involved rather than just sitting back and watching like some kind of spectator experience. So the flower crowns were a really visible way that we brought everyone into the wedding. And that's because we didn't just go with the traditional model. Flower crowns are really popular in weddings for maybe just the bride, just the flower girl, maybe just the bridesmaids. But for our wedding, flower crowns were for everyone, every age, every gender, not just in the bridal party and the family, but for all of our guests to make flower crowns and wear them. And so this got everyone into the spirit of the event. Everybody was dressed up, and we encouraged everyone to wear Ren Faire garb as well. But of course, everyone has a different level of comfort with that, and we just let people wear what they wanted, but the flower crowns were mandatory. Which one of my cousins escaped wearing flower crowns, but I think literally everyone else at the wedding was wearing one, and they seemed to really enjoy it. And another element that I loved about the flower crowns is that it's a hands-on craft. And maybe that's just because I'm a Waldorf teacher and I love crafts, but I also see the way that people interact differently in different activities. And so I love that we started our wedding day with our family and bridal party sitting down at a table, making flower crowns, working with their hands and chatting, which is such an ancient way to interact with each other. And then our guests got to do the same thing at the reception. That's when everyone else got to make their flower crowns. So I love the way that it allowed people to interact with each other. And then during the reception, our flower crowns were literally walking floral arrangements through our wedding. So we didn't have any flowers, any decorations on the tables, and we didn't really need them because we were outdoors in a beautiful place. But we did have floral arrangements, just that people made themselves, and then they wore them. So at any given table, people sitting there, you'd have 6 to 8 floral arrangements. And then when people get up to go and dance or get some more drinks, their flower arrangements are walking with them, which is really beautiful, and it also gets everyone into the spirit of the event. So now I'll actually talk about how we made the flower crowns happen for our wedding. And I'll put some timestamps down below if you want to jump around at all. So I'll start with how we ordered the flowers, and then how we prepared all of the materials, and then finally how to actually make flower crowns in a few different user-friendly styles. So for our flowers, I ordered them bulk online. I used 50flowers.com. I ordered them about a month ahead of time, and I had them delivered to our site where we were staying. And most of the time, flowers will need to be delivered 3 to 4 days in advance of the event. So the biggest thing we needed to do that were lots of shears to cut the stems, and just buckets to put them in. In ordering our flowers, I just went with as many different colors and textures as I could, and even some of the flowers I didn't think people were going to use, like really big roses and thistles. I thought no one's going to use that. People did, and it looked amazing. So I really loved seeing how everyone used the different flowers creatively and uniquely, and my bridesmaids as well, they made their own bouquets, and they each matched their flower crowns color schemes with their bouquets, and So what I focused on mostly were getting smaller blooms. That's what you'll see in most flower crowns, are little blooms and lovely bits of texture that can wrap nicely around your head. And now I'll show you the actual bases that I made. So I wanted flower crowns for our guests to be as easy as possible, especially for guests making them during the reception. Maybe they've never made one before. So I made bases that have loops on the end so that they can go around anyone's head either this way or this way, and it'll be open in the back. And then I provided some ribbons and some twine. So however much space you have left in the back, you just tie it up and you're ready to go. So the first thing I'm going to show you how to make today is actually this base. So for the wire, I have 3 pieces here pre-cut, and these are just about the diameter of my own head without any gaps, because they're going to get shorter as I work with them. So I've got 3 long pieces here, and the first thing I'll do is start with that loop. And then to further protect anyone coming and working with it later, this is where I take some of the tape and wrap it around those little pointy ends I was just working with. So that's one side already done. And then to go down, I just do a very simple 3-part braid. One thing is that I don't want to actually make this too tight, because I want anyone working with it to have different options of how to weave in their flowers. So now that we have our flower crown base, I'll just share a few different ways of making the flower crowns. And so this first method is a bit more natural. This is more how Odin did his flower crown. So you can just take one end of your ivy and stick it in, and then you can simply weave it. If you're doing a weaving method, you want to leave the stems of your flowers a little bit longer, and it really works better with a flower with a pretty bendy stem. This is just bendy enough, but you can see it's a little bit brittle there. So I want to be careful. And you can think about where you want this flower to be poking out, and that's where you begin. And then with that stem, this is what's going to hold it in place. You just weave around. So here's the crown I've just been making, and this is very simple. So this is a very accessible way to make a crown, and of course you can keep going and add more onto it, but even something just as simple as this, just greenery around the edge, a few little blossoms on the top, is already so festive and lovely. Now I'll show you the way that I made my flower crown, which is more of the florist method of how to make flower crowns, and that involves using more of the tape. So I did use some of this nice sticky tape because we were on the windy ocean and I wanted to make sure things didn't blow away, but I also used some florist tape, and this is not really sticky, it's just covered in a wax that adheres to itself when it's warmed and pressed together. So it takes a bit of doing, but this is the traditional way to do it. And we also have this floral arranging tape. You want to start, if you're making a full crown, from one end and go all the way around to the other end. Or you could make more of a headband and just do one section. And luckily the braid looks pretty nice, so you can leave it exposed. The technique that I used was actually to make sort of little bouquets. And this method is a lot easier working with the brittle stems. When I was weaving, sometimes a stem would break and then I'd have to kind of start again. This way you want to leave just a couple inches of stem, but it doesn't really have to bend. So now you just take that lovely little bouquet And you actually want to start with the flowers facing towards the edge because we're going to be working our way over the stems. And we'll start with floral tape. So you can see here the way the flowers are laid with the stems straight against the base. And this is not going to feel sticky at first, but you just run the tape over itself. And then I like to use quite a bit of pressure, and also the heat from your fingers will help it to start sticking. Right, we're nearing the end of our flower crown here. Definitely, if you are doing this method, give yourself some time to complete it. My wedding flower crown took me about 2 hours, and I think this one is pretty close. This might be our last bouquet. I've got a slightly better camera going now, so I'll give you a nice close-up of how that floral tape works. So I'm putting some pressure on there, maybe going back up and down again, squeezing it, and something that didn't start off as sticky forms a nice adhesive. And there we have a nice full flower crown. Let's see what it looks like on. Woo! So that is a really full flower crown. And I do have my bridal flower crown here. Now these roses were bigger before they dried, but this is the flower crown that I made using little spray roses. And that's another lovely thing about having flower crowns for you and all your guests, is that you can dry them, and most flowers will dry pretty well, and you can wear it again and again. And here is a dried flower crown, which I actually love the way that that looks. And I'll include some more photos of our fresh flower crowns here at the end. But I hope that you enjoyed this video. I hope you've gotten some flower crown inspiration. These were some inspirations I gave to our guests of just all the different ways you can use flower crowns with greenery and texture and color, even on top of your favorite fancy hat, to make your festival alternative wedding come to life and be everything you've dreamed of.